Hello, everyone. Welcome to our group discussion. Today we are talking about renshuu. Not talking about Japanese, we're talking about renshuu. And basically, I'm going to do a bit of introduction of some of the lesser used features, lesser used settings, but still powerful stuff, as well as take questions from you all. And with that in mind, if you have any questions about renshuu, this isn't questions about bugs. I'm happy to hear about bugs, just not during the event. Let's say, how do you do this? Or is this feature available? Or how do you recommend setting this kind of schedule up? Please feel free to, at any time, even when I'm talking, mention them in the channel, the Discord channel. We're in the events voice channel, but the actual text channel we use is just above it. It's called VC-events. So if you have any questions at any time, toss them in there and I'll be happy to answer it. I want you to know that don't feel bad about asking questions. And maybe you're thinking, oh, this is a silly question. Everyone else knows how to do this. Chances are they don't. renshuu is a quick 30-second history of renshuu. renshuu is over 20 years old. It got started as kind of a personal project, and it very, very slowly, and then the last few years, rather quickly, got bigger. And so for those of you that are developers and you can have a sense of what this number means, it's at least, I checked this a few years ago, I haven't checked since, it's at least 500,000 lines of handwritten code. And so there's a lot inside of renshuu. And even for my, I'm going to call them power users, the ones that use it frequently and have used it for years, they're still finding out new stuff that's kind of buried in it. There's just so much in there. So don't worry if you have questions about, oh, is this, you know, a quote unquote stupid question. I don't think there are stupid questions. Feel free to ask anyway. But I'm going to take the first 15-20 minutes to kind of show you around, show you a few things that you might not know about. And if you have questions, again, dump them out as you get them. You don't have to wait for me to say, where are your questions? All right, let's get started. I'm using on the screen share that you can see, this is the web version of renshuu, although they're 99% the same. And so things might look a little different, but it's more so because of the size of my screen and less so because it's got different content than the app. So you should be able to find everything in more or less the same place if you are an app user. Okay, let's get started. One of the biggest things that A, confuses people, and B, makes renshuu, I think, more powerful than a lot of systems out there is how customizable it is. And there's a lot of settings, a lot of settings. And I wanted to point some out to you just so you can say, oh, this is possible. You know, I can do this. We're going to start with schedule settings and then jump over to kind of the broader settings, of which there's, I think, about 1 million of them. So the schedule settings, if you didn't already know, with our new layout for the schedules, I'm using the screen share now. You know, all the settings are right here in your little settings link. And, you know, with this, the first thing that pops up are the quick settings. These are the ones that you might change, you know, more frequently than not. You can change what you're currently studying. And this is actually, let me jump out of this one and switch over to I have one. There we go. To a word schedule. Up here, this one is particularly powerful because a lot of people don't touch this, but this is actually the ways in which you're studying stuff on renshuu. And it's really worth looking at this and deciding which of these is most valuable to you. Because, you know, most systems are essentially they're flashcards. You know, there's something on the front, there's something on the back. Yes, they're called study vectors. And renshuu, a lot of renshuu, not all of it, is built on the same way in that, you know, seeing the kanji and then choosing what the kana for it is, or seeing the meaning and then choosing the kana or the kanji or what have you. You know, these apply to different things in real life. You know, the way kanji and kana is, I think that one's more self-explanatory, but a lot of people might, for example, in here, they might say, what's this kana to meaning? Like, when would I actually use that? Is this actually a useful thing to study? Because ultimately, you're going to get to the point where you're reading primarily kanji. And why would you, for example, read the word, for example, renshuu? Why would you read it in kana and have to think of the meaning? Wouldn't you see it in kanji? And the answer is you won't, but you will hear it. Does that make sense? When you listen, you're listening in kana. You don't listen in kanji, except for a few special exceptions. But you listen in kana, and so hearing the kana and doing the meaning is a really good way to build up listening without extensive listening materials available. If you can read the kana and kind of hear that, then you can start putting together sentences that you hear. But in general, for any type of schedule, the more checkboxes you have here, the busier your schedule is going to get, because these all act separately from one another. Your mastery level, which is how well you know a term, could be extremely high for your kanji to kana, but it might not be so high down here from meaning to Japanese. And so if you are in the situation where maybe you put too many new terms in to begin with, and now you're thinking, I have all these reviews and there's just too many for me. And, a lack of motivation is our biggest enemy, I think, in language learning. You can just uncheck some of these. And for each one you uncheck, it won't be an immediate necessarily, but the number of reviews you get from day to day will definitely drop significantly. So keep that in mind. And I'm going to look up, there's a question that popped up. Yeah, if you're reading kids' books, yes. If they're aimed for a lot of books are aimed for certain ages. Like this is a book for first graders. This is a book for second graders. And with that in mind, they will only show the kana, usually, and not the kanji if they haven't learned it by that grade. So that is an exception, yes. But typically, people will read those until they can read something at a higher level. But yes, that's a good point. Now, these are just kind of faster settings that you'll change more often than not. The meat of the settings are down here in more settings. And these are definitely worth taking a look at. There's a bunch of them, but it's all about taking renshuu and saying, I don't like the way renshuu's quizzing me on this. I want to do it differently. And it's all in here. The first several sets of settings are all number-based. It's how big are the quizzes? Do you prefer, a 10-question quiz, a 40-question quiz, or are you like some of our users where you want 500 questions in one quiz? As well as if you ever find that you're in a situation where you have too many reviews. Say your goal is 50 reviews, but you're getting 100. You've turned off your new terms. You're not studying new terms right now, but the reviews are still kind of high. You can use this to set, I can set I want 50 per day. And by doing this, it will let you, renshuu will basically hide all those other ones. They're still there. They still need to be reviewed, but renshuu will say, here's the 50 that are best for you today. Let's focus on those. And so that's a nice way. If those numbers that pop up are a bit intimidating to you, this is a nice way to kind of clamp down on that. You can focus on new terms, how much or how little you want to learn each day. But what I want to really look at is down here. There's some really good stuff down here. Vector handling. This is a newer feature, and it's nice if you want to study multiple vectors at the same time. Remember, vectors are these things right here. Typically, renshuu tries to not cheat you, but prevent you from cheating yourself, in that if you answer one question about a term, that term is probably in your short-term memory. And if another question about that term comes up 15 minutes later, there's a good chance you're answering it not because you know it, but because you have seen it recently. And we're trying to avoid that. So by default, renshuu will only show you one question per term each day. However, if you turn this on, it will avoid that. And if you have reviews ready for, say, all 3 of these vectors, you'll get 3 questions for that term. Now, jumping down a bit, some of these are a bit, I'm not going to go over everything because that would take forever, but I'm just focusing on a few of the more important things. This one looks somewhat intimidating, but it's extremely powerful. and it's worth taking a look at. Mastery level spacing, you can get to this inside of the overall settings. Like there's a way you can do it and it covers all schedules at once. This is one that's on a per schedule basis. And basically what it does is each time you get something correct, you don't see it again for 2 days, for 4 days, for 12 days, for 200 days, depending on how well you already know it. That's these numbers. Basically, if you're level 0, you're going to see something immediately. If you get it correct, it goes up to level 2. Now you see it in percents, it's 10%, 12% mastery, but behind its actual levels. Level 2s are going to come up 1 day later. If you get a level 2 correct, the next time it will appear, roughly, is 4 days later. And so forth. So what you can do here is if you want to get a lot more review, say you want to get this term, even if you get it correct, you want to see the term over and over again for that first week. You can trim these down and say, you can even put the same, whoops, hey, it disappeared. I'll fix that. It should be giving you a little spot to type that in, but I guess it's trying to embarrass me. So, but you can type in new numbers, drop those numbers down, and it will make it easier for you to see those more frequently. But just pretend that there's little input boxes right here that were working last time I checked it, and I'll get it fixed the second this event is over. So this is helpful. And if you change them too much and you feel like, oh, it's a mess, you can use the default button to set them all back to default. One more setting I want to point out is this one, this guy right here, just above it. There are not more than 9 levels. If you've gotten something correct 9 times in a row, it assumes that you've basically mastered it. And that's not 9 times in a row as in I did it, 9 days. It's probably spaced out over several months. And so after 9 days, you're basically seeing a term probably less than once a year. But it does not go above that, no. This one that's above it, study style, is another really useful setting, especially if you're in the spot of trying to slow down your schedule so you don't get as many reviews. Basically, what these do, it's set to slow and thorough originally, but up here you've got your study vectors. Most people have 3 or 4 study vectors turned on for any schedule they're working on. And like I said, if you get a kana to kanji question correct, that one, the mastery level will go up for that. It will not go up for anything else. These will stay where they are, and then when you review them, they will go up or go down. This changes that. Quick and simple will basically say, if you've got 3 of these vectors turned on, every time it's time for you to review this question, renshuu will randomly choose one of the 3. So today it's going to say, today I'm going to give you kanji to kana. If you get that correct, the mastery level for all 3 vectors will jump up all at once. So the term grows much more quickly, and then you get a random selection of questions depending on what you have selected. So one of the biggest questions that I get here in the Discord and in private messages on renshuu is, I've got too many terms to review, what do I do? And going down here, switching it to quick and simple, chopping out a few of these study vectors, even just one, or adjusting your mastery spacing can make a huge change in how quickly those things come back for review. So it's definitely worth taking a look at these settings. You might be, depending on what the schedule is, you might be with that schedule for months. Some people have schedules that they hold on to for years. And it's worth the time to take 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and play with those settings to make sure it's meshed up with you perfectly. I see someone mentioned a problem, but I'll handle any bugs or suggestions after the event. But thank you for bringing it up. Now, let me dive into the other gigantic section of settings. And there's a lot of cool stuff in here. There's so much that we're going to start having hints in renshuu, like when you're the loading screen, when you open up the app, they'll say, hey, this setting exists, or you can do this to help you out. But this, there's a whole bunch of stuff in here. And we've got it into different sections. There's a few things I want to point out that power users mostly know, but these are things that people go in and change, and it often makes things a lot better for them. Let me jump into the motivator section real quickly. Now, most people enjoy these. If you don't enjoy them, that's totally fine with me. But we have a lot of motivational stuff. The call coins, the adventure mode, which is call chan on the front page, the call garden and whatnot. All of this is here, and all of it can be turned off. So if you want a really clean dashboard, it's just got your schedules, it's just got what you need to study, then this is a really nice place to turn all that off. So definitely check that out. You can even have the gacha machine, but not have the actual gacha machine animation. If you're someone that really wants to just knock off those seconds, I don't want to have to push the button, have the coin pop out, I just want the coin. Then you can turn off that animation here. As most people are studying vocabulary, it's definitely worth checking this out. And a few things that are worth mentioning. This first one, if you're studying kanji on renshuu, studying the kanji characters, as in you have a kanji schedule, then jumping into here, what it will do is I'm going to use the channel real fast. Let's say you have this word. We all know what this word is, I hope. Nihon. And let's say when you started with this, hiragana. You don't know any kanji yet. One day, you learn, that first kanji. You learn the nichi, or the ni in Nihon, and the questions start showing up like this for you. And you're working on it, and you get your mastery level for all the kanji vectors up, relatively high. Next, you learn that second kanji. If you have this turned on, what it will do is whenever you learn new kanji, it will drop the kanji vectors down a bit so you get some extra reinforcement with that new kanji. Because if you say get your mastery level all the way up for this one, it affects the kanji vectors. It wouldn't make sense to affect the non-kanji ones because it doesn't apply to those, but it's just the kanji vectors. So if Nihon with one kanji, you got up to, level 9, you got it all the way up. You maxed it out. And then you learn that second character. If this setting wasn't turned on, you wouldn't get any reviews, not for a long time, even though you just got this new kanji. But what this does is it will drop it down up to all the levels. And it'll make it so it comes back up again so you can practice that new kanji. Hope that helps. Now I'm going to jump. That was the main one I wanted to show you in there. Additionally, we've got this setting. If you're starting out, we've got some beginners in here, I'm sure, and you don't want to see kanji until you know them. You don't want to see them until you know them. You're not crazy about seeing the ichi with the furigana on top of it that feels like information overload to you. You can set it to here. And that way it will not appear at all unless it's a kanji you've learned. A lot of textbooks take this path, and the children's books that a user was talking about a few minutes ago will do this. They usually don't show kanji with furigana. They either show just hiragana or they show it with just kanji. And this setting will help you do that. This last one is nice for people that want kanji to appear all the time. Even if I haven't studied it on renshuu, or I don't plan on studying it on renshuu, you turn this on, and basically what this does is it assumes you know everything, all the kanji. So any term that has kanji, it will throw that kanji out there to help you practice it. The kanji section, I'm going to skip over. Nothing is particularly difficult to understand in there. Quizzing, it makes sense because most of you spend most of your time in quizzing. it's got some good features in here that will hopefully speed things up for you. A few of them right here. If you prefer to have, you like to speed through those quizzes, just go through as fast as you possibly can, then you're going to want this second option. This presents the answer next to the question of the next term. So you answer question 1, it'll give you the answer to number 1 and then the question for number 2 right next to each other or right above and below one another, making it faster to go from question to question. If you are one of the people that likes using that drawing pad to draw in your answers, when you're instead of typing, this one will have them pop up by default if there's a fill in the blank. And so it just, again, it's a speed issue. If you are, I used to call this the Batsu feature when I was developing it. If you, on the other hand, like to slow down and you feel like when you miss terms, you immediately jump to the next question, so you didn't have enough time to kind of focus on missing that term, turn this on. This will force you to slow down every time you make a mistake and type in the right answer before you can continue. Now, a few more things. We do have an audio volume setting. We do have an audio speed setting, which you can use to slow down the audio in renshuu. It's all native recorded, and everyone speaks at or slightly below native speed. Because if someone is teaching you the word taberu and they treat you like a baby and they say taberu, that doesn't help you. That doesn't help your ears adjust. And so it can be rough, but having it at native speed, is tough but beneficial. However, you can slow it down a bit with this. And there's one more, if I see it. Where is it? Oh, I think I jumped past it. I jumped all the way past it. Here we go. Who's at the top? This one is extremely useful. A lot of people have told me, I've heard them say, multiple choice, I'm fine. I can figure it out. Fill in the blank, it kills me. I would like to do fill in the blank, but I don't want to type the answers. It's just, I'm on my mobile phone. I don't want to type them out. Or it's kanji, so I don't want to type them out, or whatever. But the multiple choice feels like I'm answering the question without necessarily understanding the question, if that makes sense. This really helps with that. I've recommended this hundreds of times, and so I'll do it once more today. With this, here's what you can do. With multiple choice questions, it will hide the answers. It'll show you the question, it will not show the answers. So here's what I did when I used renshuu for many years. A question comes up. Let's say it's a kanji question. It's asking you for the hiragana. And let's use the same one we used before. Nihon. Nihon pops up. You can't see the answer, so here's what you do. You try and think of the answer in your head, or write it down on paper, but probably think of it in your head. And let's say I get it correct. I think to myself, Nihon. I think it's Nihon. Then you tap on the screen to reveal the answers. If Nihon, if the answer you thought of is there, you choose it. If it's not there, you choose skip, or I don't know, rather. Even if you can figure it out by looking at those answers, you don't choose it. You only choose it if it's the thing you thought of before you reveal the answers. This is basically a speedy version of fill in the blank because it's forcing you to recall it. If you understand it by only because you look at the other 3 answers and you know they're not correct, that's not going to help you in real life, which is what everyone's aiming for, is, competency in the language. But it's much, 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 much faster than typing it in for 95% of this. So using this will speed up your quizzes. They'll make them harder initially, but it's going to be faster in the long run because you'll spend less time thinking you're advancing because you get the questions right, only to forget them the next time. So I would definitely recommend turning this on. Now, there's a few more settings down here. Nothing that is particularly important, as in I have to show you this. It's a super secret thing, but it's definitely worth taking a look at everything and see if something looks good to you. We have a way to, have the audio play automatically after questions. So, you get the answer page or the result page that pops up and, it says Nihon. So you have that, it's one click less for a lot of people that want to hear that over and over again. If you absolutely hate those spelling mistakes, spelling mistake questions, you can turn them off. The ones where it makes the vowel sounds longer or shorter. You can just tell renshuu, don't use those at all. And again, here's the mastery spacing. Let's see if it works here. Oh, it does work here. And this is global. This changes everything. And then if you ever change it for your specific schedule, it will override that. Korea is a question about the things. I don't think that's too low, but I also don't think there's an optimal number that applies to everyone. What'll happen is typically, even with 150, no, it's just this is what was in there originally. Usually by the time people hit level 7, level 8, they're pretty good with those words, like pretty good. And keep in mind that at the same time, you typically have 3 or 4 vectors on any given word that you're studying. And so by the time you reach level 7, you've probably reached level 7 on multiple different ways of seeing the term. And so a lot of people will drop, they'll drop a schedule once they get past, say, level 5, level 6. I'm not saying that's good or bad, but many people don't push all the way up to 100. Some people do. It's totally up to you whether you want to hold on to those or not. Dan, I shouldn't use people's names because everyone's blurred out, but I've got the names in front of me. Sorry. Unfortunately, this is due to a decision I made. I kid you not, 20 years ago. renshuu cannot review things, set a review marker for less than 1 day. If you're a developer, you can probably see what I did, but I would love to be able to do that, but it would require a huge number of changes that would I know it would break renshuu down before I was able to build it back up again. So it'd be nice, but not at the cost of what it would take to change that. So it's a decision I made a long time ago, and I have to live with it. But good question. But yes, as I'm talking, keep the questions coming. Like I can see the questions in front of me. And again, there's not going to be a specific question time, except maybe at the end. So if you've got them, please ask them before time runs out. So one more thing, this doesn't apply to, it gets mentioned for people to become renshuu Pro users, but it can apply to anyone. Most of our users are free users, and this definitely can benefit them. If you go down here, what a lot of people do is they'll say, hey, I've got too many schedules. And let's say I was doing the N5 or I was doing the Japanese basics, and I'm moving on to beginner Japanese. What do I do with that old stuff? Do I remove it? I still want to review it? What's going on? There's a few things you can do, and let me show you a few styles that other people do. What some people do is they just delete them. And that's fine. You can delete them from your manage your schedules page. You can just get rid of them. Your mastery levels don't disappear. So if you ever study them in the future, you can get back to it. But they just delete them. What other people will do, now I'm not going to do it, but just show you, is they'll merge schedules of the same type together. So say they've got 2 older vocabulary schedules, and they want to hold on to them. They still want to study them, but they don't want so many things on their dashboard. You can merge them. You can put them together. And then the schedules just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Alongside that, with the suggestions we were talking about before, you can rename it, call it vocab review, and then you can change, you can change the settings in it, drop down the number of vectors that you have, or change it to quick and simple. That way you're still getting some review, but you're not getting it as frequently as you would if you had everything turned on normally. One thing that a lot of people do is for example, a lot of people are on mobile and on desktop when they use renshuu. One account, you can use it wherever you want. And there's some things they prefer to do on desktop, but they don't want to do on mobile, or vice versa. For example, if you're a pro user, you probably don't want to practice the writing questions on desktop because you're on a mouse. But on a mobile device, drawing on that drawing pad is so nice. You love doing that. And so what a lot of people will do is if they have something, anything that they want to do here, but not do there, here's what they'll do. So let's say I've got my Minna no Nihongo. It's one of the textbooks. And I want to split it out. I'm going to just call it Minna for fill in the blank. Whoops. Oh, I can't type. Let's try that again. And it makes a copy of the schedule. What I can do then is I can split up what the two schedules are handling. So my new copy, I can say this one, I just want to practice my typing. So anytime it's Japanese, I want to type it out. I'm going to turn off my meaning ones. I just have kanji to kana, meaning in Japanese. Great. And I want to type it whenever I can. I now have this schedule. It's just focusing on two vectors, and they're ones I want to type out. I can then go to my original schedule and say, all right, I don't want to study those. I'm studying them in the other one. This one, I just want multiple choice questions, that are meaning answers. If I see Nihon, I tap Japan. You now have two schedules that are covering the same material, and they don't get in each other's way. And with that, you can say, all right, I'm at home. I can do fill in the blank. I've got my keyboard. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to study, type in stuff. I'm on the subway. I just have my mobile device. I'm going to use this one and do the multiple choice. So it makes it really helpful to split these up. And Red, yes, it will be available here this one won't be in renshuu, the app, but it'll be here in the server events channel up at the top. The person to the end, yes, if you are, actually there's a way around that. There is a way to get around that, and I'll show it to you. Basically, so the person asking is, let's say you split these up. You split them up, but then you have a term you want to add to them. There's a couple ways you can do it. If you do it the fast way, so let's say I'm adding Nihon. I go in here, I would tap the plus button, and I'd find these two. Oh, it's already in there. But let's pretend it wasn't. I would just tap to add them in. Now, maybe you're thinking, well, I'm going to end up adding a lot of terms over time. Now, I don't want to have to go up and add it to both of those at the same time. There's something else you can do. This is a feature that not everyone knows about, but it's pretty cool. In resources, this used to be called the Lesson Center. It's now called Community Lists. These are all the lists of materials that I/renshuu or anyone else has made and made public. And what you can do is you can make a new list. So let's say I am going to slowly add stuff to this schedule, but I want to add it to both schedules. I'm going to say extra words for Minna. Whoops, too many N's. Too few N's. There we go. I'm going to make it private because this isn't for anyone else. It's just for me. And I put in a word. I put in omoshiroi. Just for the sake of this example. I add it. I'm done. I save it. Now I've got this list, this private list. And when I go back to my schedules, presumably you would do this before you split the schedules, but you can always add and remove tons of materials at once. You can add and remove single words through the dictionary, but if you go in here to add and remove materials, you can add in tons of stuff. This is a scheduled version of that community list that we were just looking at. And so, for example, I can go down here to me, and now I have a ton, so I have no idea where that list is I just made. Maybe, there we go, under assorted. I can schedule this. It is now part of my schedule. Anytime I add something to this, it gets added to my schedule as well. And by the way, it doesn't have to be yours. It can be anyone's lists. I can go down to new, and someone is talking about BTS lyrics. I said, I want this. I'm adding this to my schedule. And it's in there. And so if you add that originally, then all you have to do is anything that gets added into that list will get added into anything that has that list with it. It's all linked together. Oh, and it looks like that person didn't hear me talk, so let me type out the answer real fast. Oh, when you're done? When I'm done. Sorry. So the schedules are aware of changes that take place in the materials that are contained inside the schedule. So the schedule is basically a secretary or a administrative assistant, if you will, that keeps track of everything. It says, okay, this person added in all these extra, one-off terms. Oh, they also added these lists. I'm just going to keep an eye on these. If these lists happen to change, I'm going to go in and grab those and make sure that this schedule for them is exactly the way they want it to be. Okay. Let's keep going. So there are ways, so you can glob together schedules, and for people that hopefully you're with us for months and years, people that have been around for years, some people have schedules that have 10,000 terms in them. They've gone through several levels, and each time they finish one, they just take that old stuff, they group it together into a giant review schedule, and then they focus on the new materials that they have. Now, a few more things. Again, please keep the questions coming if you've got them. Oh, and yes, to the person that asked, you can publicize. I mean, the lists are public if you set them to be public. And in fact, we have here in Discord, in our study materials channel, we have a list of people showing off some of the lists that they made before. If you check out my lists, not the ones that Renshuu made, which are still me, but you see back when I was more actively using renshuu and not just developing it, I was putting together some word lists for a few of my favorite songs from back in the day. So you can find them, you can add them in there if you want. Now, continuing, there's a few more advanced features that, since we have the time, I'm going to show you because otherwise you might look at them and say, "Oh, this is too scary. I don't want to deal with this." If they're unrelated, I might not be able to get to them, the questions, but go ahead and toss them out. If I can answer them, I definitely will. So under tools, we have a few things that are really helpful. Actually, they're all super helpful. Let me show them to you real fast. Quick introduction. One user, your mic is on, so you might want to oh, they muted it. Perfect. Thank you. Kanji index is a really useful feature once, I think, for a lot of people. It's really good if you're coming into renshuu and saying, I already know this, renshuu, stop giving me hiragana or stop giving me furigana and whatnot. And with that, you can go in here and say you're jumping in, and a lot of these you can just, now I know all these, so that's why they're already colored. But usually they'll look like this when you first get started, and you can say, oh, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one, I know this one. What's this? That's insane. Okay, skip that. I know this one, I know this one. And you can quickly mark up or mark all of them here. You can also block them if you don't want them to be studied. in your kanji lists. And you can easily use this to very quickly craft a setup for what renshuu knows. Because renshuu is all about trying to make sure that you get what's at your level. That's why I think this actually works out. You can't really share renshuu accounts because it's too personal. And if I mark this, I'm going to start getting this kanji, but not this one, in all the sentences that appear. And someone else, the sentences on the same exact page might look different because of the kanji they know. So the kanji index can help you easily figure all that out. The next tool, advanced search, has a big warning on the top of it because if you go in and just randomly click things, you could wipe out all of your mastery information. It is an extremely powerful but very useful tool. Basically, what it does is, depending on the materials you're working with, you can quickly adjust just about anything with them. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're jumping into renshuu and you want, your N4. You're studying the JLPT, you finished the N5 level and you're studying N4. But you would like to review the N5 materials. You don't want to study them from scratch. That's too much time. You don't want to go and click on each one. You can go to N5 and you can say, all right, for all my N5 ones, there's 853 of them, I want to take that mastery level. I'm going to push it up because I want them to come up occasionally, but not all the time. I give it a 6. That's pretty high. And they're all now mastery level 6. In 1 second, you change 900 terms and you're all good. You can add filters. You could say, all right, I really need to review, but I think I've already covered this. And let's see. Okay, this stuff I don't think I've studied, but I've added things randomly. All right, I want to find. Oh no, I don't want to find the stuff I've studied before. I want to find the stuff I've never studied before. All right, here's all the N5 that I've never studied, which for me is 0, but it might be something higher for you. You could then take that. Let me switch it around just so we have something useful. All right, here's all the N5 I've studied before. Let me just, I'm going to add that into my schedule. I'm just going to glob that into the schedule, add terms. That schedule I had before, it now has all those terms in it. And so, in a sense, what this does, and some of the things can take a bit of time to do because they're moving around hundreds or thousands of terms all at once. But you can use this to quickly adjust the materials that you have. So it's something, until you push an action, nothing will actually change, but it might be useful to go in here and quickly add, remove, block, find all the terms that you've studied before, but you blocked them. It's like, I want to unblock all those. Do stuff like that. I'm wondering if it's ever going to stop loading. I think it just probably finished, but it decided not to tell me that. So I'm going to continue. Okay, a couple more things, and then with a few minutes left, hopefully some more of you have questions. I do see a question up there. I'll answer it in a sec. Reading Buddy is good if you're reading, or if you're watching, or if you're listening. Media Buddy doesn't sound good, so I called it Reading Buddy. But it's basically a way of building lists that you can use to study and add things to it really, really quickly. And let me give you an example. Let's see if I can find that list I was working on before. I stopped reading them. I just lost interest, but at some point it's in here somewhere. There we go. I was reading Spy Family. And I happened to be on Mission 13. Oh, I just started Mission 13. So this is really nice because what it does is it lets you look up and build a list at the same time. So say you're reading Spy Family, or you're playing a video game or listening to music and a word comes up and you want to look it up. You push pause and real quickly, you say, wait, what? What's Nihon? Wait a second, oh, it's Japan, cool. And you get the answer and you automatically add that to your list. And then you read a little bit more And because it's spy family, there's assassination. And you're like, oh, what's ansatsu? Ah, it's assassination. Got it, got it, got it. You can see down here, this list is getting built as we look stuff up. And then later on, I don't know what this word is. I look it up. Oh, it's a moshiroi. Got it. Ah, interesting. Okay, okay, okay. And basically, you just keep going, and it just builds this list for you as you look things up. So look up, add, look up, add, look up, add. These lists, by the way, don't just live in here. You can go back and look at them later if you want. Here's all my ones that I didn't know from mission 12. I could then say, okay, I want to review mission 12. Study. And you can study it if you want. You can also, as you build these, remember we were talking about adding stuff to schedules before? Let me, I'm going to use the same schedule I've been using before, Minna no Nihongo. I'm going to jump in there. And I'm looking for stuff that I made. Where is Spy Family? Where is it? There it is. Okay, let me just add all these. I guess it grabbed them all. All right, all my Spy Family stuff is now in my schedule. But what people have done in the past is they've looked things up here. They'd look things up here and they'd look it up, they'd push the plus button, they'd find the list, and Reading Buddy just kind of takes all that and puts it together. So hopefully it helps you. Last major thing I want to mention is the text analyzer. This is a tool that's available to anyone. How did I add the schedule? I didn't add the schedule. I had the schedule already. You can't do schedule adding inside of Reading Buddy, although I might add that in the future. So you need to go back to the schedule, go to add remove materials, and then find that list that you're working on. Since it's in the Reading Buddy, it's going to be here under me, because me is everything that you've made. And then, you find wherever it is. The nice thing is if you've already added some of it to your schedule, it's going to appear here in add schedule. And then if there are any ones that aren't added, they'll still appear down here. They'll say, oh, you've been adding Spy Family. Here's all the ones you've already added. Here's a few below that you haven't added. You can gunk and drop those in. Yeah, sorry if I was going too fast. The text analyzer, like I said, it's got some really nice tools that are pro only, but the core of it is free to everyone. And this is one of those things where I actually don't have a good block of text, but it's not, I was using this to test, so please don't let this mislead you. It's usually not for this. You're not putting in things that are 3 words or 4 words or long. You put in things that, see, this is me testing, down here. You can copy a block of text from the internet that's gigantic and just drop it in here. And in doing so, it will, oh, here's Totoro. Here's the entire script of Totoro that I found and I put into renshuu. It'll take a minute or two. It'll look through all of that. It'll say, hey, here's how many words are in there, how many unique words. Here's the words you know. Here's how many of them you've studied. Here's the kanji, grammar, all that good stuff. You can also read it, and it will mark up everything for you. Now, it is a text parser. Text parsers are not perfect. No perfect text parser exists in the world. They don't exist. But renshuu is pretty good. And we're adding more features for you to, sometimes if there's a mistake, it'll say, oh, hey, this word could also mean, I'm trying to find one that might have an alternate, but all these look pretty good. It will let you flip out words. It says, oh, it might be this word instead. And you can say, actually, it probably is that. Let me swap it out. Or very soon, you'll be able to make small corrections yourself in case it breaks something up. And you say, oh, these 2 words go together, or whatever. It will add grammar to it. You'll say, hey, this thing up here, oh, it's using this grammar. And it can even do more advanced grammar that spans several different words. And so this is all, and see, it will make mistakes. Like it didn't pick up, yeah, which kind of makes sense because hya is not really a word that you'll find in a dictionary. But it picks all this up. If you have pro on top of all that, you can take all the words, all the kanji, all the grammar in there, and you can easily mark them as known, add them to schedules. So you can find a textbook, or not textbook, a free text online, copy it in here, make a schedule out of it if you're with pro. And then you can study that. And so you can filter it. You can say, okay, only put ones in the schedule that I don't know yet, that I've never studied. For me, okay, that's 474 of the words in the list. And, take them, or I know these. I know this book. So take them and mark them as known or adjust the mastery level. So if you're someone that is at the level where you're consuming more content and it's digital content, something that can be copy and pasted or uploaded, as a file, definitely check the text analyzer out. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I thought I'd run out of things to talk about, but it's been just short of an hour, and we're running out of time. We have another event coming up, but I would like to hopefully answer and field some questions that any of you have about anything we covered or anything else related to renshuu. I'll give that 5 or 6 minutes or less if no one asks questions, and then we'll wrap things up. But if I had to summarize it, it's look into the settings. Take some time when you're comfortable and play around with settings. Some things can radically change the way that you interact with the materials on renshuu. It can speed things up, it can slow things down, and it can make it to where this was driving me crazy, now it's perfect. And the person that just joined, that was the TLDR, but this event will be available on the server events channel here in the Discord afterwards. And no, I didn't answer that, but let me look at it now. Are you talking about the drawing panel? Or looking up words in the dictionary? If you're talking about the stroke order or the drawing panel, no, they're not available. The drawing panel, this drawing panel is here, but if you're looking for how to draw, kanji has it. Kanji will show you down here if you look it up in the kanji dictionary. And of course, if you're in the word dictionary and you see a kanji, you just tap on it and it jumps you right over. And you look at this here. However, I think you're asking about the one that actually might have the one where it's like, hey, try drawing this. And that's only available in the introduction of the materials and in the writing questions if you have pro. We keep as much as we can free on renshuu, and there's a lot of free stuff, but we have to put a few things, just a few, behind pro so we can support ourselves. That the other question that was mentioned at the top about the default settings, I'm going to look at that after because I don't have an answer for you right now. I need to check into it. It's not something I've touched in a long time, and it might be a bug. What language is it programmed in? renshuu is very old. Like I said, I started programming it 20 years ago. And so it was and still is run, the server is run off of PHP. Yay! No frameworks to speak of. It's all bespoke code. PHP is easy to use, extremely easy to use. And it's my code base, so I know it inside and out. I'm the only person that's used it, so I have no problems using it. But the front end is it's all web-based stuff. So it's your HTML, CSS, JS. But again, no real frameworks unless you count jQuery as a framework, but you probably don't. Because I made it so long ago and it wouldn't make sense for me to completely rebuild probably say 100,000 lines of code just to put in one of the more modern frameworks. So it works. Any other questions before we wrap things up? Excuse me. Well, I started 20 years ago. And if you looked at it even, I'm going to say 7 or 8 years ago, it would look completely different. I'm trying to get it to look nicer. And the big change was Saki, my wife, who does all the artwork for renshuu. And the core of renshuu, the machine that makes it work, has been around forever. The settings and the mastery system and all that. But thanks to her artwork and her skills with that, it's made it much easier to work with all that, get used to it, enjoy it. And so I had the ideas, but being able to make the Kalchan adventure system and the games and whatnot wouldn't have been possible without her. So renshuu 10 years ago looks very office-like. Very few graphics to speak of, artwork. And now it's definitely a nice blend between the two. I hope we have time to continue the manga. It's we just have so much we have on our plates, and there's no decision I make or that she makes that doesn't push something else further back. Like there's not enough time to do everything, so it's always which do we choose to work on today? Is it this or is it that? And I would definitely like to add more Kal manga, but I don't think there would ever be an end. So I don't think there'd ever be a point where we said, okay, there's no more to it. So in that sense, this is just personal. There is a sense of frustration and that there's not really a completion to it, that we can work towards it and say, once this is done, it's done. And yeah, the UI, it's not incomprehensible, but it's much more difficult. And these days, apps, especially learning apps, are heading in the direction of very simple, very basic. Everyone studied the same way. Here's what you have. Extra tools, no, 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 no. And people are used to that. I'm not saying one's better or worse, but when you're used to something that's extremely simple and you switch over to something that's much more complex, for a lot of people, it's not worth the time to get used to it. And that's fine. I completely understand that. It's their choice in the thing and, and how they approach things. But if I were to oversimplify it to the point to where it's similar to some of those other apps, then what would renshuu have left? It would be competing with companies that are, 100, 1,000 times bigger than us, have full, groups of people and lawyers and advertising budgets. And so I'd rather go further in the direction of what renshуу's strengths are, which is a bit heavy on the UI, but it's getting better. But more freedom than you could possibly get in any other app. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. If you're still asking questions, feel free to keep doing so, but I'm going to officially end the video and the event. I hope this helped everyone. I'm not sure if it did or not, but I hope it helped give you some tips on how to use renshuu a bit more better and get more out of your time. So this will be available not in renshuu itself, but in the Discord server events channel. So thanks so much.